Hello everyone and welcome back to the draft review. In today's video I'm going to be doing my first mock draft. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's get into it. At number 1, I have the Cardinals picking Nick Bosa. In a lot of mock drafts I've been reading recently, they have different guys like Josh Allen going number 1, but that's really just for clickbait. If we want to be real, Nick Bosa is definitely the best player available, and the Cardinals shouldn't overthink it, and they should definitely take him at number 1. At number 2, I have Josh Allen. Josh Allen really helped himself in his senior year in Kentucky, made a name for himself, and he can really get after the quarterback. That's what the Niners need, and that's why he's at number 2. At number 3, I have Jonah Williams of the New York Jets. Now, this may be reaching a little bit, and it's still debatable whether he's even the best offensive tackle in this draft class, but he did come out of Alabama, a proven system, and he could very well go this high. The New York Jets need a pass protector desperately to keep Sam Darnold upright, and Jonah Williams could be the guy. At number 4, I have the Oakland Raiders' first pick out of 3 in this first round, taking Clelin Ferrell. The Raiders were historically awful at getting after the quarterback this year, with only 13 sacks as a team. Clelin Ferrell could come in as a rookie and get double digits. It's a real possibility. The Raiders need pass rushing talent, and Clelin Ferrell would give them that. At number 5, I have the Bucs taking Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins, in my opinion, is the best quarterback in this draft class. He's from Ohio State, and he's a little bit different than your typical Ohio State passer. He really made a name for himself as a one-year starter, and the Bucs, it's probably time for them to move on from Jameis Winston. So I think Dwayne Haskins would be a great pick for them at number 5. At number 6, I have the Giants taking Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, just like Dwayne Haskins, really made a name for himself this year. He took over at Oklahoma from Baker Mayfield, and as everyone knows, Kyler Murray won the Heisman this year, so he had a pretty good year. His biggest flaws is something that he can't control. It's his size. He's listed at 5'10", and I've heard that's generous. So he's pretty short, but what he can do is he's a playmaker. He gets things done. And it's time for the Giants to move on from Eli Manning. They've rode that wagon for a little too long at this point, so Kyler Murray should be their guy at number 6 if they choose to go quarterback. Number 7, I have the Jags taking the Alabama defensive tackle, Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams really was probably the best defensive tackle this year. Coming into the year, he wasn't very well known, and he wasn't even sure if he was going to be a starter on that Alabama defensive line, but he really made a name for himself in practice, got into the games, was a disruptor, got after the quarterback, and that's why he's up at number 7. Number 8, I have the Lions taking Greedy Williams, the cornerback from LSU. In my opinion, he's the best cornerback in this draft class. He was not targeted very much this year just because of how well he played, but the Lions need to get another partner on the other side of Big Play Slay, and Greedy Williams will really help lock down that secondary for the next 5 to 10 years. At number 9, I have the Bills taking N'Keal Harry. If you watch my wide receiver rankings, you'll see that I had N'Keal Harry as my number 1 wide receiver. If you want to hear more about him, go check that video out. But this would be the perfect fit, as the Bills need to get talent around Josh Allen for his sophomore season at the helm. Number 10, I have Deontay Thompson going to the Broncos. Deontay Thompson was a standout this year for Alabama back in that secondary, and he was a big reason why they made it to the national championship game. And the Broncos really do need safety help, so that's why this would be a great fit at number 10. At number 11, I have Devin White. Devin White has been compared by some to the next Randy Moss. That is a very high expectation for him to live up to, and I'm not sure if he's quite that talented, but the Bengals do need a linebacker, and with a talented linebacker like Devin White still available, This could easily be Devin White's pick at number 11. At number 12, I have Kelvin Harmon going to the Packers. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have that many years left as he's getting up there in age. So the Packers need to do everything they can to get talent around him if they want to make one last push to go get another ring. And Kelvin Harmon would be a great guy. He's very tall, and the Packers would really benefit from adding a guy like Kelvin Harmon. At number 13, I have Miami taking Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was the most valuable player at the Senior Bowl this year, and I think he improved his draft stock from there. But also, the Dolphins need a quarterback, and it's time to move on from Ryan Tannehill. Daniel Jones may not be the franchise quarterback they're looking for, but he's the next best thing available in this draft, and if they're not willing to wait till that talented 2020 group of quarterbacks, then Daniel Jones is their guy in this draft. At number 14, I have the Falcons taking Ed Oliver. Excuse me. Ed Oliver is from Houston. He was coming into the year, he was projected as a number 1 and if not number 2 overall pick. He didn't quite play as well this year, and he was injured for over half the year, so that really hurt his production, and it probably didn't help him draft-wise. But he's still a very talented player. The Falcons could always use another stud up front on that D-line, and Ed Oliver would be their man. At number 15, I have the Redskins taking Drew Lock. Drew Lock would be the 4th quarterback taking in this mock draft, and I've heard that is very possible that many quarterbacks are taken in the first round. The Redskins, as most of you probably know, moved on from Kirk Cousins and decided to go with Alex Smith. But then this season, Alex Smith got a terrible, terrible injury, the same injury that Joe Theismann went through, and he may be done for his career. The Redskins need a quarterback ASAP, and even if this isn't their future franchise quarterback, Drew Lock will be a stopgap for at least a few years. At number 16, I have the Panthers taking Dalton Risner. The Panthers need to protect Cam Newton. Cam Newton was running around all over the place, and Risner has been inconsistent, but he really helped himself at the Senior Bowl, playing very well at right tackle. So Dalton Risner could very well be the Panthers' guy to help protect Cam Newton. At number 17, I have the Cleveland Browns taking Mack Wilson. Mack Wilson is probably overlooked in this defensive group. He isn't talked about as much, but he is very talented. He played on that Alabama team that was runner-up in the national championship game, and the Browns would love to add him to the defense. The Browns kind of built up their team on defense, and they could always use another stud on the defense. At number 18, I have the Vikings taking Jeffrey Simmons. The Vikings really need to get better in the trenches, and Jeffrey Simmons would be a great guy to help them start that. From Mississippi State, he played alongside Montez Sweat, and they were dominant during this season. The Vikings would really benefit from taking a big man like Jeffrey Simmons. Number 19, I have the Titans taking Noah Fant. Noah Fant is my number 1 tight end. If you've seen the tight ends ranking, I go into why he is my number 1 tight end. But at the end of the day, the Titans need to get some better skill position players, and they don't really have a big standout number 1 tight end guy. So that is why Noah Fant would be a great selection at number 19. Plus the value at number 19, already getting the best tight end maybe in a few years out of college, you can't beat that. So Noah Fant to number 19. Number 20, I have the Steelers taking Jachai Polite. I also talked about him in my defensive tackles video, but this man had a great season at Florida. He had production, and the Steelers need someone big on that line to get after the quarterback. Jachai Polite will be able to do that at the next level, and that's why the Steelers take him at number 20. At number 21, I have the Seahawks taking DeAndre Baker. The only thing about DeAndre Baker that makes me a little weary is his size, as he is pretty short. But if a team can overlook that, he had great production in college. Some may even say better than Greedy Williams. And the Seahawks would very much benefit from an improved secondary by taking DeAndre Baker. At number 22, I have the Baltimore Ravens taking a wide receiver from Ole Miss, A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is a tall stud from that loaded Ole Miss wide receiver group. He is the best in that group, in my opinion, and the Ravens desperately need some pass-catching help. Michael Crabtree was all right this year, but they really need to improve if they want any chance of doing anything in the near future, playoff-wise. At 23, I have another Ole Miss player going to the Houston Texans. That would be Greg Little. He is an offensive tackle, and he is rated differently by many experts. In my opinion, he's a first-round talent. He's big. He's what you want from an offensive tackle, skill set wise, and Deshaun Watson needs help staying upright. The Texans have not done a very good job of doing that through Deshaun Watson's first 2 seasons, so it's time to change that in year 3 and get a big man like Greg Little to help him. Number 24, I have the Raiders' second pick. I have them taking a cornerback from Washington, Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy is very talented, and in many drafts, or in many years, he'd probably be going top 15. But because this draft is so deep with defensive talent, he made it all the way down to 24. The Raiders will be very happy they can get a steal here, and they also need another cornerback opposite Garyon Conley in the secondary, as they gave up too many big plays this year, and taking a guy like Byron Murphy would very much help them going forward. At number 25, I have the Eagles taking Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs was another big reason the Bama made a run in the playoffs this year. This running back, it's a pretty cool story. He is one of the only guys to get recruited to Alabama in recent memory, at least in my recent memory, as a three-star prospect. Those kind of guys usually don't make it to Alabama, but in this case, he went to Alabama and became a stud. Josh Jacobs is now my number 1 running back prospect, and the Eagles need a runner. We don't know about Jay Ajayi, his future with the team, so Josh Jacobs would be the perfect fit here at number 25. At 26, I have the Colts taking Trayvon Mullen. The Colts really exceeded expectations this year with Andrew Luck coming back from injury and the new quarterback. Everything started with building in the trenches, and they've done that, so now it's time to improve their secondary. This Clemson cornerback is very talented. He was a major factor in Clemson winning the national championship this year, and I think that the Colts would be delighted if Mullen fell all the way to number 26. At 27, I have the Raiders taking Montez Sweat. Now, this is the second Mississippi State defensive lineman in this first round, and the Raiders would be delighted to have another defensive end fall into their lap. Now, I did have Clelin Ferrell being taken by the Raiders, but because of how bad they were last season, as I mentioned, at getting after the quarterback, taking 2 defensive ends would not be a concern, and I don't think most fans would have a problem with that either. Montez Sweat can get after the quarterback, and he had a decent week at the Senior Bowl, which should help improve his stock. At 28, I have the Chargers taking Taylor Rapp. Taylor Rapp may or may not be a first-round pick in some people's eyes, but in my eyes, he's a first-round pick. He had a great year as a safety for Washington in that pretty good defensive backfield, and the Chargers would love to pair someone with Derwin James, and Taylor Rapp could be their guy. At 29, I have the Chiefs taking Devin Bush. Devin Bush is one of those highly touted linebackers and defensive players from Michigan. A lot of mock drafts have him all the way up like in the top 10. just because of the depth of the defensive talent in this draft. He slipped all the way down to 29, but the Chiefs would love it if they could get some linebacker help. Their defense was the reason, well, one of the reasons that they didn't make it to the Super Bowl this year, and to get a guy like Devin Bush at 29, I think they'd be thrilled. At pick 30, I have the Packers taking Irv Smith Jr., the second tight end off the board. The Packers really need help. Like I said, with the earlier pick of Kelvin Harmon, they need help helping out Aaron Rodgers. And they do have Jimmy Graham, but he is getting up there in age, and his production has kind of fallen off a bit. So getting another skill player in Irv Smith Jr. would help Aaron Rodgers out tremendously. Number 31, I have the Rams taking Christian Wilkins. Christian Wilkins is from that loaded defensive line of Clemson, and if he fell all the way down to 31, the Rams would snatch him up. Ndamukong Suh is only under contract through this year, so if they decide to go a little cheaper, then Christian Wilkins would fit the bill. And at number 32, I have the Patriots taking J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I talked about him a little in my wide receiver rankings video, but Arcega-Whiteside is a tall, very talented skill player out of Stanford. He could end up being a red zone threat, and I think the Patriots really need some help in the wide receivers. Tom Brady has mentioned that he wants to play till 45, and if he wants that to happen, he needs some targets to throw to. And that's why JJ would be a great pick to end out this first round. So that'll about do it for my first mock draft of the season. If you guys enjoyed it, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you did enjoy it, I can continue to make these mock drafts throughout the season. If you want to see more, please hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I want to see if we can get the subscriptions count up to 50 by the draft. So let's get it up to 50. Tell everyone you know that you think would enjoy it. And thanks for watching.